Welcome back to iReport University. I hope you're in the mood to learn about subreports because that's what we're doing today in lesson 3. Subreports are very similar in ways to tables, but rather than setting a table within one of the bands on the report and then creating a data set or query for it in the report inspector, a subreport is a completely separate file containing its own data set and everything. These are particularly useful for things like memos, which we can program once, but then you can make it appear in multiple reports without needing to rebuild it every time. Let's take a look at an example. The sales order report, for example, it has a subreport in it for memos. So if we turn on show memos, now the memos appear there as well. Let's take a look at what that looks like in iReport. In the SO report.grxml. So there it is right there. That yellow thing is the subreport. And once we select it, we can see some of its properties, and there are 3 main properties that we'll look at here. First is the print when expression. So you can see it's tied to this show memos, which is a Boolean parameter. Check the box, it shows. Uncheck it, it hides. Second is the subreport path. So this is where this file is actually stored. It's in the common folder. And notice we also have this path parameter as part of the path. Let's find out where that goes. So if we open up our parameters, click on path, we'll see that that's looking in the sales order folder, but then it has this .. which means it goes up and then down into the common folder, as we just saw. When you create subreports, they're always going to be in the custom folder, so you don't need to do any of this pathing. You don't need the path variable. You don't need the .. Just put the name of the report and it will work fine. We'll practice that in a minute. The third thing that's important here are the parameters, and we're going to take a look at this in a minute when we get to another example. For now, let's modify this. Let's maybe add some HTML to it. For example, here in our example, you see somebody tried to do that. This is also a memo, and then there's a tag to turn it on bold. So there's some HTML. So we want to turn on HTML so it works for this field. So let's go ahead and do that. And as you recall, the first step is to make a copy of the report. Don't change the original one. So we'll grab this sub memo. We'll paste it in here, and we'll just change this name a little bit. Not that it really matters, but to new. And if we change this and its location, then we're also going to have to change our sales order report so that it will point to the new one. So let's do a save as here. Oh, and look, save as is not available. And this is just a quirky thing about iReport. It's not available because something is selected. But if you click off of that, deselect it, now save as will become active again. So go up and down into custom, and let's rename this as well. And so report memo. And for our second step, this is good to make a habit of as well. We'll change the report name here to control how it appears within Fishbowl, so you don't get if you try and add this to the sales order folder, you won't get a conflict because you can have 2 reports with the same name within the same folder in the reports module. So let's name this sales order report memo. Now that we have our new report, let's change the path to it. Memo new, and we can get rid of all of this extra path stuff. So that's compiled and ready to go. Now let's open our sub memo and change the markup for that field. So I'll select that. I'm going to close my palette because I won't be needing that, so I can see more properties. And scroll down to markup. You see it's set as none. We're going to change that to HTML. And compile. All right, let's upload it and give it a whirl. So here's my SO report memo. Grab that same order and we'll turn on the memos. And there it is, bold instead of showing those tags, just the way we planned. Now at this point, it's worth noting that you shouldn't drop subreports just anywhere on a report, at least not if you have a subreport that might grow. For example, in this instance, we have 2 different memos, right? What if there were 10? This would have to grow, and not all bands in iReport can grow. The ones that can are, of course, the detail band. You already knew that. Also the summary band. So if we put a subreport or a table there, that could expand to allow it to fit. And then if you add any groups, in this case, we've got a couple. We've got the customer address, notes, memo, SO info groups. You can put it in the header or the footer for those groups. And we'll talk about groups in another video. Next, let's do another example, and let's do something maybe even more useful. We're going to create what we call a wrapper. For example, if you look in the batch folder here in Fishbowl by date, maybe you really like this batch by date packing list where you can tell the reports module to open up and print all the packing lists within a certain date range. And you want to be able to do that exact same thing, but not for the packing list, for the shipping invoice. Well, we don't have one of those, so let's create one of those for ourselves. And we're going to do a shortcut to make this easy. So we're going to start in the batch folder by date, and we're going to start with this packing list by date, and we're going to turn it into an invoice by date because they're very similar, especially at this level. So I'll copy that, paste it into my custom, rename it. Open that up. You notice I'm not adding any spaces here, but every time I capitalize a letter, when in the display, it creates a space for you. Now let's take a look at this query, and I'll show you why they're so similar. Basically, this is just grabbing all the ship IDs and it has some parameters, so you can say, just show me the entered or packed or shipped ones that happen to be in this date range. So that's all we need. We're going to grab all these ship IDs, but now instead of passing them to the packing list and printing over and over and over the packing list, one for every ship ID, we're going to do that pass it to the shipping invoice. So we'll select this subreport, and these are totally flexible. So we're going to, instead of going to the packing list, we're going to do, first off, we're not going to put it in the ship folder, we're going to put it in the custom folder. So ship invoice batch. We'll just name it that. And now when I run this report, it will point to that folder once I compile it. But first, let's go actually create that file. So we'll go into ship, and we'll get the shipping invoice. And you notice there are a lot of sub shipping invoice for different country versions of the software, for if it's a SO and so on. But all we need to change is the shipping invoice file itself, because it will still point correctly to all those sub files, whether it's pro forma or whether it's been shipped and it's actual invoice and so forth. So copy that, paste it to our custom folder, and let's rename it. We'll open up these two. We can close these ones we're done with. I'll rename this as file as well. This one, oh, I already did, so that's good. Now at this point, it would almost work, except for the fact that the packing list has some different parameters than the shipping invoice. So let's delete out all the ones we don't need, and we're just going to copy them over from the shipping invoice, and then I'll show you how to link them, which we hinted at before. So all these things, we're going to leave those alone because a lot of those run in the background. We're going to keep our date range. We're going to keep that because that was in the query. And most of the rest of these, I will keep those format ones because that was also in the query. Or those status ones, I mean. And the rest of them we'll delete. Now we'll go to our shipping invoice and see what we've got here. Let's just copy all of these over. I'll paste them here and we'll see if there are any duplicates. Nope. If there was a duplicate, it would add a _1 behind it. Oh, look, there is one. There's a copy of the module, so I'll just delete that. Okay, and now we're ready to go except for tying these parameters together. So once again, we'll select the subreport. We'll go down to parameters and let's start by cleaning this up. So we'll delete all those. And now we could go in one at a time, which sounds laborious, right? And we could say, we've got this date range 1. I'm just going to copy that text. Say apply, and then here there's not a way to select it because this report isn't really connected to the subreport, so it can't do a query and find them. So you just paste in whatever it is and click OK. And you could repeat that for everyone. Luckily, there is a shorter way. Copy from master. If I click that, there, it just added all those in for me. All right, let's get these things rendered and try them out. All right, let's upload our new reports, and I'll warn you, we are going to run into some errors to fix, but since that is definitely going to be part of your process, we'll do that together for practice. Okay, shipping invoice by date. Well, here's one error. It's still asking us for a shipping number, and we want just everything by date range, and it's in the required tab, which means we can't ignore it, but I'm going to select something, and I think it'll let us slide past it anyway. Let's grab all of our packed and entered orders for now. I'm going to save that as the default. And we get an error, unable to populate. Server log will tell us why. Resource not found at shipinvoice.batch or batch.jasper. But look, isn't it right there? I'm testing you to see if you know what's wrong here, by the way. Shipping invoice batch.jrxml. Oh, look, they're named differently. This one says ship, but it's actually named shipping. So let's, we'll just change where this is pointing. We'll correct the name there. Compile that again and see what we run into next. Well, let's also get that ship num off of the required tab. And when you have a lot of these, it's often helpful to right click and do an alphabetical sort. So we'll uncheck this uses prompt, and next time we compile it, that'll move to the optional tab instead. If I choose one, you'll notice it's all just this sales order 113, and we wanted to do the range. So let's take a closer look at how we pass that down. First, we're going to look in the query here and see what we're gathering. So we're getting ship ID, and that is a field. Keep this in mind, because when we select our subreport and check out the parameters and find our ship ID. Look, we're sending it the parameter from modify report. We don't want the parameter. We want the field where it can generate multiple results, multiple ship IDs to pass down. So let's modify this. And I could just change this P to an F, but I'm just going to walk through this so it makes more sense to you maybe. I'll just select right there. Get rid of the previous. Oh, and it's a different case as well. So just as well that I did that. Okay, compile. We'll try it again. And of course, we don't even need this ship ID parameter anymore because we're not passing it down. It's not doing anything. So I'm going to delete that. And next time we compile, it'll take it out of the optional tab as well. All right, let's see what happens now. Look, no more ship ID. And now it works beautifully. See, we've got our 3 different orders. I'm just going to tell you one of the other things we're going to run into. Watch what happens. I'm just going to run it from this query. When we also get shipped items, so not just open ones. And I'm going to get the ship num again so you can see what's going on. See this one that starts with a T? That's a transfer order. And the shipping invoice only works for sales orders. So let's narrow this down as well and say, so it'll only get sales orders. Otherwise, when you run it and say, I'll open, it'll see this transfer order and it'll give you an error. So we'll say, and ship.soid greater than 0. There. Now, and I'll show you where that comes from. So go to the tables, ship, and you see there's POID. So if you're shipping a purchase order, which is a credit return item, then you would have something there. But for all sales orders, you would have something right here for SOID. So there's 8 and 10. There are a couple of our ones we were just looking at. I'll copy this over to our real report. And even when we add in the shipped orders, we get a lot more of them, but no errors. Now, if you followed everything we covered today, then congratulations, you are a bright young whippersnapper, and you'll eventually be a great report writer, I'm sure. If you didn't, don't even worry. If you're new to this, try some things out, come back and watch these videos again later. It'll make a lot more sense the second time around once you've got some time in the driver's seat as well. So thanks for watching. Stick around for upcoming videos and enjoy your day.